welcome back. Welcome back to a new Laughing Moment installment. Today we're going to be reading a new book series that we're going to be introducing. Now this is book 7 out of 7 books. I know we're going to be starting from book 7 and go the whole way down. I know it's kind of confusing, but if you want to watch the full series, once the full series comes out, you will always see the playlist for every series that comes out. A lot of you guys have been subscribing to this YouTube channel, so I decided not to let this stuff die out, so you guys can finally be able to watch your Laughing Moment videos once again. So today we're going to be reading chapter 1 of the new, well not of the new, but of the Among the Free. So this is the last book of the Margaret Peterson Haddix book series. This is from the Shadow Children series, so this is the last book in the series. So we will be reading chapter 1 today. I hope you guys all enjoyed today's video, and if you do, please give it a thumbs up, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello guys, today we're going to be reading the book by Margaret Peterson Haddix. We're going to be reading the last book in the series called Among the Free. So we're going to basically go downwards. So this is kind of like a different one. So if you guys want to read the first book, that's probably going to be, most likely, is probably going to be either next year or the end of this year that you will be able to read the first book. But if you do guys want to read the end so you don't have to read the rest of it, then I would gladly suggest you watch this series. So we're going to be reintroducing reading videos once again on my YouTube channel, as a lot of people on my community post, out of 6 people, 5 people wanted to see it and 1 person did not. So we will be doing the newest series called the brand new series called Shadow Children. We read this at my school I go to now, and it's a very interesting book series. So we're going to be reading the last book, as I cannot wait no longer to see how this book ends. So we will be reading chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's like a 24 pages, so not bad. Let's do this. Among the Free. Chapter 1. Luke Gardner stood shoulder to shoulder with 1,000 other boys. Waiting. It was 6 a.m., time for the daily inspection of all workers at Population Police Headquarters. When all their uniforms had to be perfectly fitted, perfectly spotless, perfectly pressed, all their spines perfectly straight, all their expressions perfectly obedient. But Luke and the boys beside him were stable hands. The lowest of the low. So even though they had to line up outside at 6 a.m., sometimes it was 6:30 or even 6 before the sergeant, or even 7 before the sergeant stalked down the row. He'd peer at them surprisingly, assigning extra work anytime he saw a wayward lock of hair, a wayward crease in a uniform, or even the suspicion of a smirk on a boy's face. "You," he barked, shovel all the manure from stall 1 into stall 2, and then shovel all of that into stall 3. Only the stupidest boy would protest that method was inefficient and would take twice as long, that his time might be better spent doing something other than doing some other chore. All of the boys in the lineup had learned not to be that stupid. Once a long time ago, soon after Luke had arrived at Population Police Headquarters, a boy had dared to question a task. "Isn't there a bigger shovel I can use? It'd go faster that way." The boy had been beaten in full sight of all the other boys, and then he disappeared. Luke had not made any friends in the stable. The unspoken rule seemed to keep to yourself, but Luke spent a lot of time thinking about the boy who had dared to ask a question, the one who disappeared. Attention! It was the sergeant, arriving earlier than he had ever before. "Yes, sir," Luke shouted back, with the other boys snapping his arm up in a salute. He worried that his arm had come up too late, that his "yes, sir" had been a split second too slow, that he'd been singled singled out for punishment. The sergeant narrowed his eyes, seeming to stare straight at Luke. Luke's heart pounded in his chest, but then the sergeant's gaze fell on the next boy in the line. You are worthless stable boys, the sergeant spat out. He glared at each boy in turn. You're no better than the manure you wallow in. Yes, sir, Luke and the other boys yelled. They'd been trained, they knew what they were supposed to say. But the sergeant paused. This was different. Usually he could go on berating them endlessly. Some of you will have a chance to better yourselves. A new tone had entered his voice. Slyness, uncertainty. From the millionth time since he'd left his home, nearly a year earlier, Luke wished he could understand other people, that he could see through their lies to hear what they were actually saying. Some of you would be called to a higher purpose, the sergeant continued. Some of you will be reassigned to a new task for the glory of our country. None of the boys dared to move, but Luke could practice carefully, feel the others around him wanting to exchange glances to see if anyone else knew what the sergeant was talking about. Higher purpose, new task? What did that mean? Another man strode up beside the sergeant. He was taller, more imposing. His uniform was more crisply pressed and had a row of medals on his chest. I'll choose, he said imperiously. He walked up and down the row of boys, peering carefully at each one of them. Luke had held his breath as if exhaling might call too much attention to himself. He didn't want to be reassigned. He liked working with the horses. They were safe. The stables were a good place to hide. I, for one, had had enough of hiding. Words a friend had spoken months ago echoed in his mind. Luke had not come to Population Police Headquarters looking for safety. Only a fool would want to hide there. Luke and his friends had plans. They had dreams, but they hadn't realized how big Population Police Headquarters were, how difficult it would be just to pass a message from one person to another. Luke couldn't be sure he and his friends had accomplished anything. Sometimes when he was brushing down a horse, he whispered into the horse's quivering ear, "Maybe I am just a worthless stable boy. Maybe that's okay." Luke had spent most of his 13 years around hogs, not horses, and any hog would have looked back at him with its piggy eyes, as if to say, "So, you think I care?" But the horses looked at Luke as if they understood. One horse in particular had a way of sliding her nose under Luke's arm as if she were comforting him, as if she wanted to say, "I know you've been through a lot. I know you've been hurt. I know you've been hurt and hungry. I know you and your I know you miss your family and friends. I know you're scared. You just stay right here with me and you'll be fine." Secretly, Luke called this horse Jenny, in memory of his friend of his, Jen Talbot. But deep down, he knew that the human Jen would not have been so comforting. Jen probably would have screamed at him, "What are you talking about? Well, you are not just some worthless stable boy. You're important. Go out and change the world." Luke was starting to feel a little dizzy from not breathing. He dared to ease a little air out of his lungs, to take another shallow breath. The man with the medals on his chest was taking his time walking down the row of boys, staring into their eyes, reaching out to test their arm muscles. "You," the man said, picked up the tallest kid in the row and showing him to the other side of the room. "And you." He said, yanking the most muscular boy out of the line. Luke allowed himself to take a deeper breath. He let himself notice how cold it was out there in the early morning chill, and then how much warmer it would be back in the stables. 2 down, only 1 to go. He was probably safe of the boys remaining. He wasn't the tallest or the heaviest or the strongest. He was just a typical scrawny kid. The man narrowed his eyes, examining the boys left in the lineup. He grabbed one of the boys' head so he could stare into the boys' ears. He studied another boy's straw-colored hair. Luke had expected the man to reach into some boy's mouth to look at his teeth, the way the head groom did with the horses. Good thing Mrs. Talbot managed to get the braces off my teeth, Luke thought. He had a flash of remembering a light-hearted moment in the midst of sorrow and fear. Him and his friends laughing in a cozy cottage while Mrs. Talbot tugged on metal bands and wires and protested. "Look, kids, orthodontia is not my specialty. What do they put these things on with? Cement?" In that moment, Luke hadn't cared that the braces endangered him, linking him to a suspect past. He hadn't even cared that all her tugging and scraping hurt. He'd just been happy to laugh with his friends. Now something caught in his throat. He had to swallow hard to fight it back his memories, to hold back his sense that he deserved to be that he was more than a worthless, lonely stable boy. Maybe he made a little noise deep in his throat. The man with the medals on his chest snapped his head toward Luke, focused on the glaze of his narrowed eyes squarely at Luke's face. The man gave Luke a cruel, thin-lipped smile in horror. Luke watched the man slowly lift his arm higher and higher and higher until it was aimed straight out for the boy. The first finger extended. "You," the man said. He was pointing at Luke. So that's it for chapter 1. Guys, I hope you enjoyed chapter 1. I know I promised to bring chapter 1s through 5, but I decided, you know what, as I haven't been uploading a lot, I think I want to bring more videos instead of just putting them all in one. So thank you for watching today's video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Click on one of the videos that's popping up on the screen right now, and I love you all. Peace out.